Hi, I'm Ali Hargreaves and I'm going to show you how to paint some cliffs and trees using a credit card for these quite interesting effects on here. If you're a member of my class, you've already had the opportunity to do all these techniques, and we use Prussian blue, burnt sienna and lemon. These three colours: Prussian blue, burnt sienna and lemon yellow, all by the SAA. So we learned how to do all these techniques, and now we're going to put it all together in a painting. So the idea first of all is to put the cliffs on. So I'm going to use the wash brush. I'm using three brushes here. The wash brush, which is a number 16 SAA silver brush, a number 6 worker brush, again a silver SAA brush, and a detailer brush, again the SAA silver range. I really like these brushes. They have a really lovely point. Even this big brush has a really super point on it. So the first thing we're going to do is put the rocks on. I'm not doing the whole painting, I'm just going to do part of it. The photograph we're working from is this one, and so we've got these cliffs here and we've got these trees all sort of quite precariously around all the rocks, and the rocks here and the ones at the top. Now you could do the whole picture, which I have for the lesson, but for this video I'm just going to show you part of it, the rocks here and these trees on the top, so that we can go through every single technique. So I'm just going to sit down here and start. So first of all, I'm going to use the Prussian blue and the burnt sienna together, and I'm going to mix them together to get the rock sort of grey colour here. I did suggest that you could use burnt sienna and ultramarine if you prefer. It will be less green that way, it will be more grey, but I'm just sticking with a limited palette here. So I've got a really nice grey, darky greeny grey really here that I've mixed, and I'm going to start with the cliffs at the bottom. So I'm putting this colour over with the wash brush, add some water, you get the lighter colour, a little bit more of the burnt sienna in some of it, so we get a mix of the two colours together. And looking about where the cliffs are, you know, some at the top there, and letting it kind of disappear there. Now that's quite wet at the moment, so I'm going to get a credit card like this and just cut it into shape like this. So this one I've got a thinner part and a thicker part here, or even that shape would be good. Going to have the curve on there as well. So I'm just going to scrape into here and look what happens. Get this fantastic effect of getting a lighter colour. And so if you use the ultramarine and burnt sienna mix, you do tend to get a lighter edge. You know, the white of the paper comes through a bit better with that, just because Prussian blue is quite a staining colour. Notice what I'm doing with the credit card here, bring it across to get some of those cracks in the rocks, and I can just scrape through as well and get some lines in there. It's really very effective way of getting rocks, and I can keep going with this because it's still fairly wet, and coming down like that. And maybe a little bit of a rock up here. I'm just going to add a little bit on here, and again I'm scraping through with that, with the credit card, to get the idea, the texture of the rocks really, like that. Okay, so quite effective. You know, if I do this, look, I get some printed lines on there. Again, you know, if you're in my class, you've had that sheet to show you how to do that, a little bit more information. So if you are just watching me on YouTube and would like more information on this, if you just get in touch with me with my email here, which is ali@alisart.co.uk. Oh, it's not there, but that's how to get in touch with me. Just Google Ali Hargreaves or Ali's Art and you can find my information. Alright, so, because I do online lessons during lockdown. Right, so I think that's quite effective, quite happy with that. Looks like rocks and the cliffs and everything. Got lots of different tones in there just by doing that. So now I'm going to start adding the trees, and I'm going to use a mixture of lemon and Prussian blue. Now, as I said in the techniques, the reason for using these colours is they're both cool colours, and because of where they are on the colour wheel, the fact that they are cool colours, they're going to give you some really lovely bright greens. If you use a warm blue or a warm yellow, you're going to get more muddy colours. So it's quite important to understand that sort of thing with a theory with colours. So I'm going to start actually with a little bit of the burnt sienna mixed in with the lemon there. Because if you look at the top of the trees, they have got a little bit of a brown tinge to them. But keep it clean and more of the lemon than the burnt sienna. And then I'm going to just start with the top of the trees. It's all about observation. Really look at those trees. What do they look like at the top? And then as they come down, they get more yellow, a little bit greener. And I'm just using the tip of the brush to kind of almost scribble away there to get the idea of the tree. And then as it comes down a little bit darker, notice the wet and wet that's happening there. You know, it's just spreading into that paint because it's still wet, which is a really nice effect. Then keep coming down, and then as we get further down to get even darker, use that mix of Prussian blue and burnt sienna, which gives you a really dark colour there. I'm just going to add a bit of water to let that wet and wet happen, going down there. And then whilst it's still wet, use the credit card. I'm just going to use the corner of the credit card to just do this in one fell swoop, and I get this line coming down. So it's a very similar effect to that. The other way of doing it is using something like this. This is Keith Fenwick knife, which you can get from the SAA, and it works in the same way. So if I wanted to put a line here, look, I get a really nice line, and like this to get some idea of branches coming off. It's a really nice effective way of getting the light colour, but the credit card works just as well. Right, so I'm going to carry on doing these trees. I'm going to have another one using the same kind of colours, so that kind of browny yellow to start with on here, the top of the tree. Vary the trees so that some are taller and some are shorter, makes it more interesting. Excuse me, a bit of the light green. Again, it's going into the wet and wet, and then coming down, getting darker as we come down the tree. Notice how I'm leaving the white of the paper. It's really important for that to, I think, in watercolour, because it has that translucency, and then there's the light coming through. So here's the credit card coming through, and just making sure the paper's flat. Now that's actually scratched into a dark line, can you see? So sometimes you get this white line and sometimes you get a dark line. It all depends on how wet the paint is and whether it's actually gone into the paper yet or not. So it is a little bit random in that way, but that's rather nice. I'm using the dark mix now underneath, like that. I'm going to wet it, and then just going to use this knife and see if that has different effects. Yeah, a little bit of a white line there. Now I'm going to go the other side of the cliff here, and again I'm going to use that light green colour with a little bit tinge of the brown coming down the side of the cliff here. Another one here. As I say, vary them, so we've got tall trees and shorter trees. So I'm not sticking completely to the photograph. I'm using the photograph as a reference just to get the idea, or you know, just to get the juices going really, and then I'm making it up as I come down here. So nice dark green, gone from lemon with a little bit of burnt sienna down to the green, and really dark at the bottom with Prussian blue and burnt sienna in there. And then again, I'm going to get a nice line coming through. So full swoop like that. That really shows it well, that light colour coming through and how we can do that. So be brave, be strong, you know, get a lot just go for one fell swoop of it. And bring this down. Now this rock here needs to have a darker colour in front of it, because it needs to go over the light colour will not cover it. So I'm just going to go over like that. It's very important in painting to not just get interesting colours and vary your colours, but also to get the variation in tone. So the dark against the light, it makes it stand out far more. So now we've going to start adding more of these kind of trees, these more deciduous trees that are at the bottom here. So you can see here that this is very, very dark and this is very light. And this is what I'm talking about, the tonal values. And the dark here, the shadow next to the rock, and the rock is actually very light next to it. So we need to use that knowledge. And I'm just going to put a little bit of light colour on here. This is for the deciduous tree. And then whilst it's wet, I'm just adding a little bit of Prussian blue. Look how this wetting wet effect is working. That dark colour is going into the light and producing a bit of a shadow. So the more water you put in the colour, the lighter the colour is going to be. And we want it to be nice and light around there. And then a little bit of the dark colour as well, the burnt sienna and Prussian blue mix. Look how it's mixing, just kind of almost scribbling around there. Now at the top of it at the moment doesn't stand out that well. I need it to be much stronger, the colour. So I'm mixing a really nice strong colour there, and I'm going to go along the top like this, leaving that light colour behind. Can you see how it's really standing out now against the dark bit? And then bring this coming up here. So now we have more of a deciduous bush underneath. I'm just mixing in the lemon here. Again, it needs to be darker when it's closer to that bush so that it stands out. Same here, a little bit of dotting with the brush, like this, just to get the idea of some foliage in there. Nice and light colour, like that for the top. And then a bit more coming down here into the crevice. And then, whilst it's still wet, notice how I've got these kind of scribbles and lines and the white paper is showing through. And I'm just going to dot in a bit of dark green, a lot of Prussian blue in that green, and maybe a bit of the really dark colour that has a bit of burnt sienna in it. In here, and look how it spreads out and gives that lovely bit of shadow. And then again, we really need to make this stand out by having the dark colour above it, looking at the shape of the bush like that, and look how that now stands out so much more. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna in there and really get almost black coming down like that. So it's the bottom of the tree here that we're getting. Now I can join that up by having a little bit of the light colour here, and then adding a bit of Prussian blue to that to make the darker green, and then it joins this lovely dark colour at the bottom. And then again, with the credit card or your knife, whichever you've got, I'm going to use the curve here because I think it'll probably work better. One fell swoop, yes, look at that, lovely. So it gives that really nice light trunk of the tree and gives it a bit of texture in there. So basically keep building this up. You know, this is really light like that, and then keep going. Oops, a bit strong there. And then to make that stand out, use the darker colour with the burnt sienna mix to make that stand out. Look at that. But of course it does have to go somewhere, so you know, where is that colour going? Let's get it joining that tree up there. So a little bit of the lemon mix in like this, going a bit higher. And then if you want to see the edge of that tree, a little bit more lemon in there, then again make it much darker along the top like this, so that that then stands out as the top of another tree. Dark and light, really, really important in watercolour paint, well, any painting really. So let's look at this. This has disappeared a little bit, so we need a bit more information. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this dark mix in here, so that gives a bit more. And then I want to have another tree coming down here, so I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna with lemon at the top of another tree on here. More of the lemon, make it a bit lighter, the top of the tree. So note we've got these tall ones and then some shorter one here. And then clean the brush, dry it off a bit on the paper towel, add the lemon, a little bit of Prussian blue just to make the greener, and then the Prussian blue, much darker colour. Coming down to the bottom where we've got the burnt sienna and Prussian blue mix, like that. And then don't forget to use your credit card to get the inside of the tree, like that. You see how it's darker there and lighter there. You know, this is what happens with this. It's a little bit of trial and error really. This is why it's good to practice before you actually do the painting. And then keep going with all this colour, you know, which tree is standing out against which, you know, do that by using the darks and lights, you know, one against the other. So that dark is against the light tree behind it, whereas it's the other way around up here. And this rock is a bit nothingy at the moment, so you need to just make that stand out a bit by making this a little bit darker next to it, and then it's more of a contrast, so it starts to mean more under there. I'm just going to make that disappear into there, and so on. And so you would just keep going with this until you're covering all the area, and then you'll end up with trees on a cliff face. Now I'm actually going to add a little bit of green coming down here. Ideally I should have left a gap really for that, so bear that in mind when you're doing yours if you want to have this coming down in the crease. Because this is a light colour, it's not really showing up very well, so I will have to go over it with a darker colour to make that stand out. But what I want to do is get the edge of the cliff here, you know, make it stand out a bit. Let's use that, make it stand out a little bit more. So it looks as if this foliage is going down into the crack, like that. But then it becomes a bit of a shadow. And so that that rock stands out, we need this to be very, very dark along the top here. So hardly any water, Prussian blue and burnt sienna mix will make a very dark colour. And then of course the rock stands out, it's much lighter against the dark of the foliage. So it's really important to get that dark and light in there. A little bit more of that in here to make this really stand out, the rock. Maybe put some cracks going into there. And there you can see how the rock now stands out, and we've got the edge of it and the foliage coming down. As I say, ideally you would have left a gap there when you did it, etc., so that this can keep going down, because the lemon is so light it's hard to paint that across the grey. Okay, so you would just continue doing that until you've finished, and you should end up with something like this. Now for the whole painting, obviously I did the cliffs here, then I did the cliffs here, then I put the trees at the top here, and you can see the really dark tone colours here to make the rock stand out. Wet in wet here to be, you know, just nice and loose. Here I've left the area white so that would stand out, and then gone behind it with the dark colour. The same here, this is standing out because of the dark colours behind it. Look at the variety of greens that we've got just using those three colours, lemon, Prussian blue and burnt sienna. Such a massive array of colours there, which is really nice. And this of course was done first before the trees. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you could share it, I'd be grateful, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for watching.